So we're going to start the year this month with florals. This I had done even in 2021, started with florals, and last year, sorry, 22 and 23, then I took florals during some time in between of the year. But start of the year, I like to do florals simply because, at least in Pune, you see that it is a very good season for flowers. Also, we have flowers through the year. So when you start off with something like a topic like this, you can then use that for the whole year as inspiration to practice making flowers. The biggest reason why I like flowers, other than the fact that they are very pretty to look at, is that you can practice multiple things in florals, which are employed in different topics, or they come in handy in different topics. So, for example, being able to depict the transparency or translucency or and the gentleness of the petals is almost similar to portraiture. There are certain textures within the flower, which is very good for maybe doing hair or fur. The colors, you get to use a lot of colors, and you can also make fantasy illustrations using colors of your own choice. So you can practice blending, you can practice fine lines. And just with one topic, there's a lot of skill building that you can do. We will start off with a little bit of pencil drawing first. But there's two different ways in which I want you to approach pencil drawing. One is to draw very loose lines in pencil, and then we are going to paint it with a very watery sort of paint. And the other one where we will focus a little more on the structure of the flowers, and then at maybe next week we will focus on painting or coloring of those flowers. So I want to start off with let me just go over the flowers that I've shared with you. So we have these usual suspects. We have peonies, which are suddenly very popular. We have a lotus, which is again popular for the Indian context. Also the hibiscus. Then we have a lily or lilium and pansies. I really like pansies simply because they are available in huge variety of colors. So between all of them, we have different shapes and different types of floral representations. These three on the top, they are almost like a cup. So they don't open up fully, they don't unfurl fully, but they will reveal the bottom of the flower, almost like the bottom of a cup. So is the lotus. Then these flowers, like a hibiscus, is somewhere in between, where it does open up, but also has a slender base. And so does the lily. Other flowers in this category, this cup-like category would be tulips, or you could have any flowers which come from bulbs. And then the pansy is a flower where you have asymmetrical petals, and they are very distinct shapes within the petals also. So we are first going to choose a flower of our choice and sketch it in detail. That is the first part that we will do. So I want you to look at the structure and construction of the flowers and then draw it. I'm going to show you how to do that of course. So let's take the lily, for example. Maybe all of us can do the lily. Whenever you look at, obviously, anything like how we do proportions, here too proportions can be created. The very obvious basic shape within a lily is really a triangle. And this is almost like the Star of David. You have two triangles within each other. And from here, you can get a sense of direction. So you have a line that goes to 11 o'clock from the center, 1 o'clock, just above 3 o'clock, a longer line towards 9 o'clock, 7, and somewhere between 4 and 5. So these proportions are pretty much universal throughout. And again, based on this same principle, you can use other guidelines to create the smaller structures, like you have the stamen and the anther, all of those use the same proportion. You need to know distance, you need to know direction. That's about it. So I'm going to share this image as a screenshot on the group so you can use this for reference. When we are making this pencil sketch, try to avoid using the eraser as much as possible. You make your lines very sketchy and very light so that you don't feel the need to use an eraser, and start shading from lighter to darker tones. The reason I want you to do this first is that a slow sketch in the beginning will help you see certain details of flowers much better. You will be able to look at it with at leisure. And then after a certain amount has been done, you can then use that visualizing to make the quick sketches that we are going to make. You will be able to see certain spots that are vital, that are crucial, lines of direction and distances, so that we can draw those sketches much faster. All right. So going by the blue lines that you see the in the image that I've shared with you, you can decide on how large you want the triangle to be. And pick a center point. And from there, literally start making the lines of direction. So you will have one line going towards 1 o'clock. And don't make the entire line. You don't really need it other than the starting point and the ending point. And make it to the proportion that you see it. Like, for example, this line and this line, the 5 o'clock and the 7 o'clock line end more or less in the same place. So we have the direction and we have the distance. The 9 o'clock line is much longer than the 3 o'clock line. So keep looking at the proportions in the blue line drawing that I've made. You don't have to make the triangle as well, because that really does not add to the picture. Once you've got these proportions, you can start making a light line of the petals that you see overlapping the smaller petals. So the petal at 9 o'clock finishes without a tip. So we leave it over there. We can, of course, complete it like this. And you would know this after you finished all the petals also. Then the next one is the petal at 1 o'clock. If you can't see the details because of the blue lines, you can remove that, go to the previous image, and then look at these lines that come out of it. So here the line comes upright, much more upright than you would imagine. This part is almost vertically up. These three petals are in the on the top, and then the next three are underneath. Now, if you feel the need to erase, like in my case over here, I felt my line was going too slanted. Make the corrected line before you erase the line that you're unhappy with. Okay, now this petal has become much wider and fatter, and I want to reduce it. So I will reduce the size. And the only reason I would erase it is to not confuse myself. And in this case, now I even confuse all of you. So all flowers, like most objects in nature, will have some kind of internal geometry, which helps us in drawing all these basic shapes. So recognizing that internal geometry can be super fun. Sometimes you will have, like, for example, the proportions of the petals are very clearly defined. So even blindly, you could draw certain aspects of the flower. You know that these three are overlapping, so you don't have to, even if you can't see them, you know how they exist. Then there are certain very cute lines over here. I'm erasing the guidelines that I don't need now. Now there's this very cute V-shaped green part to every petal, like a starburst right in the center. And from there, you have a line that goes out towards the tip. So the starburst or the edge of the starburst will give a direction to the dark part of the petal. I'm not very happy with this petal also. Now, at this point, it helps if, since we're going to do pencil sketching, use some kind of a rough sheet or some protection for your hand so that when you're shading, your hand does not land up erasing, smudging the lines. Now, after this basic part is done, we are going to get into the details. So at this point, you can enlarge the image just a little bit. So you get to see the placement of the other items carefully. You must remember though that when you enlarge an image, you are risking changing the proportions of your drawing inadvertently. So remember to check for proportions. Like for example, this stamen reaches only till about the junction of these two petals, where these two petals separate. When I enlarge it, it looks rather large. So I might just make it really big, but it must always remain in proportion of all the other elements over here. Every element will have some sort of landmark. These pollen heads are somewhere over here, largely falling onto the second petal or the 9 o'clock petal. And then there's another one which it starts off between these two. So even if you do get the shape right, there's a chance that you might get the position wrong. And again, as I'm drawing the pollen, I'm able to correct the line of the petal. So when detailing, all these factors will help you to fine tune the image. Now, to be able to draw these details smooth, if you want, you can use a mechanical pencil because that gives you a very thin line and you don't have to depend on sharpening your pencil to fine. Okay, once all the elements are in, we can start shading in the mid-tones. So I'm going to shade a few, one or two petals to give you an idea. First and foremost, hold your pencil really far away and start shading in the mid-tones or the even the dark areas, but don't make them dark. The first few lines that you start making and shading will be very sharp. So when you shade the dark sections, you don't really, I mean, you can go over them, so it doesn't matter. Shade in the direction of the petal, the lengthwise direction of the petal, and start building a tonal value. Now just check if when you're doing this shading, are you holding your breath? Don't hold your breath when you're doing this because then your pressure will be uneven. You don't need to shade the very light areas which are highlit, which is the areas over here at the top of the petal. And you could also avoid shading the very light pink areas. So this can seem rather tedious, shading line by line by line. But this really makes the illustration look very smooth. Pay attention to how the line varies. It radiates a little bit towards here. So even our shading can angle at 60 degrees instead of 75 degrees to help create the illusion. Now, when you want to make the deeper sections, you can use the deeper sections which have a finer line. You can use the mechanical pencil or sharpen your 2B pencil to a nice point. My shading technique is moving the pencil in only one direction. I don't go back and forth. So I shade while I contact paper while I'm coming down so that I get a more controlled bottom line. But sometimes I might also shade going upward. So this allows me to make very smooth um, fill in the gaps. And the mechanical pencil helps me to leave out very tiny sections of paper where there is very little shading. So you notice that there is a very deep dark ridge running along the petal length. Comes towards the left of the petal. And then there's another dark line that comes from the right of that line. And then again towards the left. And this goes all the way down. So now, as I'm shading, I realize that my triangular shape has become too tall. Now, the places we have to make these dots, uh, do not make a dot which is very sharp. So any place where you see a dot, start making it like a shaded section, small shaded area. So press the pencil down, and the center of that section is much darker, so there'll be more pressure there. And just along the edges of that section, you will reduce pressure and fuzz up the edge a little bit. This is the technique you can use to make dots of all kinds of organic objects. So freckles or certain dots on leaves, for example. These kind of textures you can make using this technique. So while we have one dot, which would be like this becomes too sharp. It needs to look like it has emerged out of the petal, so fuzz up the ends. The second thing to watch out for is the shape of the dot. In our heads, we see them circular sometimes, but in reality, they are almost like an oval shape, sometimes a teardrop shape, and they always have a direction. So the dots towards the right of the petal are radiating a little bit towards the right. Now remember, unlike color pencils, unlike watercolor, we can keep shading on top of existing textures. So after you have made the line, if you feel like, in my case, I feel that this section of the petal could do with a little bit of shading, I can just go over it and create that shade. And the lighter you can move your hand, the subtler shades you can make. And then if you can make them, then you can start seeing them also. More and more subtle differences become very visible suddenly. So I'm going to make one more or share one more manipulated image of this flower. Okay, I've shared one image. I'm going to share it on the screen as well. Okay, here is the image devoid of color. Now just look at the petals that you've made, whichever one petal you've made, and just try to see whether you have managed a similar tonal gradation or variation. Now for the second part, you can continue making the next petal or maybe some of the pollen sacs using this reference image. Now we only have our gray scale to manage. For those pollen blobs, notice that there's a slight texture. So move your pencil round and round to get that texture. I'm just going to show you how I'm doing this. I'm using the mechanical pencil and I'm just going in these small rounded shapes. That way it won't be like a smooth texture because it's not meant to be that. And at random places, I will deposit a little more, a little extra graphite. So there will be a subtle texture. And that would still be different from the smooth texture of the petals. A few things to note about flowers or construction of flowers. Pretty much like everything you'll see in nature, rarely will you come across um, a joint or an intersection of lines which are not a fold into each other. Like, for example, something over here, we don't see the petals come and join in a point. You will see a shape like this. So somewhere the petal does connect to the stalk, but it does not emerge from a point. And then the other petal around it or neighboring in the neighboring area is not joined to it in at a point. Everything is overlapping. The other thing to note are the very subtle shadows and a few bumps here and there that give us depth. So when you're making your flowers, look out for at least a couple of things to work on. Um, Getting the shapes right of the petals. This exercise, the reason it's so slow and to some extent even tedious, is to give you the time to keep reviewing your shapes. I don't know if you'll notice this as I'm trying to make the shape of that little green triangle in the center of this petal pointing to 7 o'clock. I'm also adjusting the shape of the petal pointing towards 4 o'clock. And these little details uh, will be something are that you can fix as you get into that detail and you start seeing more of it. So you would construct uh, a very loose illustration around in the beginning for the first part, and then you would get into the nitty-gritties. And there, making that adjustment is very important. Sometimes as beginners, we don't, we go, we build the bricks of the next on the scaffolding itself. You know, if, so the structure that we had built is like this scaffolding, and then the details are the bricks. And in order to make a firm detail, you should you should review the line that you have made every time. So that is one. Second thing also to practice is the lightness of your hand. As you proceed in shading, your hand must get lighter and lighter, and the area that you are shading should be more predictable. There should be fewer and fewer surprises for you. So just work on these two. I'm not too concerned. I don't think you should be too concerned about getting any of these right, but you should be on the right quest, I suppose. So the point of this exercise is just exercising your wrist and your fingers. That is the whole point. It isn't even about getting the flower right, honestly speaking. Okay, how's it going? Any comments? Can I help you with anything? Okay, if you guys are comfortable with this, we can move on to the next exercise. Does that sound okay? So you can use this sheet to add more flowers to this. You can also expand this and then draw the buds or some dark sections in this picture as well as you go along. So I'll make a video of the drawing like a not stop motion. What is it called? Oh, not slow motion, the other quick action, so that you can follow me if you want. But moving on, we can use a new sheet for the next illustration. So we are going to make all the flowers together on this one sheet, and then maybe write some text around it, write the name of the flower perhaps. This exercise is something that you can do if you say go to a flower garden, if you're traveling somewhere, or you've got beautiful flowers in your own garden and you want to document them, you can draw those in this style. We don't always need to draw very perfect flowers, especially if it is going to be for something like a journal, like a travel journal, maybe, or just a journal of your garden. I love making journals. Give me any topic, and any day I'll make a journal about it. I have made journals about my kids. I have made journals about my garden, about travel, of course, and about any and every possible topic, about baking. So you can use, I love that the journaling allows you to compulsorily make some art or the other. But journaling essentially means that you do it regularly and you can't do it as detailed. It's not meant to be like a picture that you might want to put up on a wall. So I want to show you a few techniques with which you can start doing illustration for journaling. These same illustrations you can also use to enhance certain just plain paper. If you're sending a note to somebody with an envelope, you can make this illustration on your envelopes as well. So we'll start off with the peonies. You can use a regular pencil, your mechanical pencil, or even if you want, you could use a micron tip pen or even a brush pen. Anything that is water resistant. You don't want to use something that is going to, because we're going to do a little bit of watercolor on this also. So let's start off with making the lily, since we have already made it. I'll make this in pencil first, and then I'll make another flower in pen. Let me use this is a very nice pencil, by the way. This is from Camlin. It's called Camlin Supreme, and it is quite a dark pencil, very nice for drawing. Now that you know how your flower looks, all that triangle and everything you know very well, you can start making the illustration directly with the line. Make very indicative lines and also deliberately scribbly. The lines can also be, can go through other objects like the petals. The line of the petal can go over the sepal, the pollen and all of that. So this is like a sketch.
We are doing the same lily.
Same lily. Yeah,
Achha.
same lily. Because now you've seen it in detail, है ना? So there are no surprises. If you make a line that does not look appropriate, change it right there and don't erase it. These extra lines tend to add depth. Even if you think that they are incorrect, they will still add depth to your picture. Some of the lines that you see in the flower, you can draw those with pencil also beforehand. And this time you can just draw circles for where the dots are, or ovals, because now you know direction as well. Now around this, we can draw a few other features like the buds that we hadn't drawn earlier. These just help the plant look prettier and more whole. There are also some leaves. We can add those. I've changed the position of the leaf from here to here. And give no more than 5 minutes to this sketch. So I'll wait for you for another 5 minutes. And then I will draw the next flower. Yeah. Oh, good. Ashok has got the idea. Making a quick sketch gives, I
If
think it
you
also,
if you take too much time, then you get into little nitty-gritties, which are really not important. You're much more relaxed and flowing.
that's exactly right. That's how it works. But tell me something, would you have thought that would have been the case?
No, no.
Because a lot of people think otherwise. They would think that making a quick sketch would be harder to do, and they'd rather have more time to make the sketch.
No. Actually, less the better.
Okay. Okay, so yeah.
No, no, I'm promoting something else. I'm promoting Chinese painting, and there's no elaboration. They take a brush and roll it with three different colors and paint it like this, and it comes out looking so beautiful.
That is so true. Yeah. With very brief strokes, they're able to and they show everything. They'll show depth, they'll show texture.
There's no reworking,
Yes.
fiddling.
Going over and over again. True. Okay, so next one we can take on, maybe let's do the pansies because I really like pansies. So in comparison to the lilium, the pansy is just about this big. So we won't make it any bigger than that. Now I just want to show you how I would start. Just like I start the face from the center and then move outward, I will start the pansy with this little triangular shape right in the center of the flower. I'm just going to show that to you. So here there's an upright triangle shape in the center, which gives us a focal point from where we can move and draw the petals up over the top and then the bottom petal as well. So that's how I'm going to make this. I'm going to start off with making that triangle shape like this. It's not a triangle that connects at the bottom, just at the top. And then from the sides, I'll draw this petal And already my petal has become a little disproportionately large. But since I know this, I'm now changing my triangle shape and making it slightly bigger to accommodate the rest of the features without making it look very comical. This other one. So my poor pansy, which is supposed to be a small flower, has gone and become the size of a hibiscus flower. But it's okay. And then in this, just to aid us a little bit, make a few of these lines to indicate the dark texture shapes that you see towards the center. For the bottom, to get the shape right, this is how I recommend making that shape. Break it up into main lines across the surface and then give a shape to that. And the last one, I'll allow you to choose whichever you want to. And if there's any other flower you want to try, you can try that also. I'm going to make a peony, the second one. So just as an instruction, I want to show you I just follow the edges of the lines I see. The petal over here has got like a very zigzag serrated edge, and then the shape of the petal is just like so. So I'm not thinking about whether it is a folded petal or whatever. I'm just looking at the outline and I'm recreating that. And then for the inside, the center of the flower, it's got these very spindly looking stamen. They're not a very attractive line in pencil. So I'm just drawing a few of them. Everywhere else, I hardly even see the edges of petals. So I'm going to just make a silhouette of the whole flower. And wherever possible, I'll make the petal. Wherever it isn't possible, I'll just make the outline. Like here I can see the fold. Here I can see the fold. Here I can see a fold. But everywhere else I can't. I can't really tell anything happening here. So before I started drawing like this, I remember there was one journal I was travel journal I was making for our trip to I think Dehradun and Mussoorie or somewhere like that. We'd gone to one place, I remember. It was a very beautiful location and had fantastic flowers. This was somewhere in Uttarakhand, I think. But also that place where we stayed had a lot of monkeys. And I remember I had taken some 2 hours away from my girls. They were very much younger then. Because I wanted to draw all the flowers on the property. And I went and sat in one place and I was merrily drawing when I heard my younger daughter scream out because there was a monkey that had come and sat right in front of her and was about to snatch a bag of packet chips or something like that. And my blood ran cold. So I realized that in a place like that, the flowers may be pretty, but there's also something lurking that you want to avoid as far as possible. So the next day when I went, I made these very quick sketches because I couldn't give up on the opportunity of making a sketch or painting those beautiful Uttarakhand flowers. I'd never seen flowers like that in my life. I mean, I've seen pictures of them, but we don't get to see flowers like irises. And even at that time, this was 15 years ago, we didn't have a good hydrangea plant also in Pune. Now you get hydrangeas for all seasons, I think. Then what were the others? Yeah, there was a bunch of lilies like that. Not this one, a different kind. Oh, they were just spectacular. And I realized that for travel, this works very well. You don't have to make those really elaborate ones. Okay, I have a blank corner here. I'm not very happy with that. So I'm going to make one more pansy. So these flowers, when you practice them, convert very well as stickers also. I make a lot of flowers into stickers. And the trick is fairly simple. If you have software for it, you can just scan these and recreate them on a sheet of paper and then just cut around them. If you don't have that, you can ask literally a local one of those printer fellows to make it for you. He'll also make it. Okay, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is a very surprisingly, oh no, not surprisingly. Funnily enough, 4 is a very odd number to draw flowers. So I'm going to draw a fifth flower and make it even. Okay, let's make the hibiscus. Now here I am underlapping the flower. I don't know why there's no word like underlapping. So please, I'm inventing this for our purpose. When we are drawing something under something that already exists. Because this will give us a dimension. All right, now for the painting bit. Since much of our detailing has been already made in pencil, and you can make more of that after we have painted, because watercolor is a translucent medium, we can just make our painting in washes. Washes are typically just light uh, paint or a light watery consistency of paint, which also means that if you want to overlay them, you will have to let the earlier layer dry. That's why we made a lot of flowers all in one go so that you can keep painting one after the other. Now, in this case, we have to try to match the color. Even though we've not spent too much time on the drawing, color is very easy to match. So I'm for the lily, I'm taking some crimson, scarlet, a little bit of orange to create some vibrance in the color. And sometimes I might also use a little bit of gamboge for the same reason. So there's just an underlayer of brightness to the color. I'm going to, oh, here's one more trick. So I have a little bit of green also, which I'll put in the center. This green is a mix of sap green, a little bit of yellow ochre, and maybe a little bit of cobalt blue. So this is what can be done. I'm going to put a little bit of that green in the center, but just in brief strokes. And then put some color onto the petal. And then wipe your brush and spread that color around. I'll show it to you one more time. So the center is where our focal color is. Now wipe the brush and I'm spreading that color to the other parts of the petal. This way you get a nice subtle shade from just the color that you have deposited, plus you get certain area which is darker. And then while it is wet, you can also add additional paint. So wash your brush and wipe it more frequently. While you're spreading the paint, some of the paint will go back into the brush. And also press the brush down when you're applying. Every time you press the brush, the quantity of paint gets from the brush gets pressed and spread out much more because of the pressure.
Aditi, for the petals, which colors have you mixed?
Yeah, I'll just note this down.
Acha, okay.
Yeah. So this is the shade, and I made it using crimson, plus scarlet, plus orange, very little, plus gamboge. Now you can see how the colors mixed with the green and looks rather muddy in the center. But this texture is absolutely priceless. It makes the flower look so much more organic and real. These kinds of illustrations are actually the essence of watercolor. We are not trying to control the paint. We are allowing that to flow into each other. We are encouraging mixing of colors, and as we go along, there will be layering. Right. So now I'm going to start layering. Same, I can do the same process again. In some places it's also wet, so that's great. While this is drying, we can always go to the next flower. The same color, more or less, without maybe the orange, would be the color for hibiscus. So here, if you can manage it, try making part of the stamen in a nice yellow shade and let this dry. And put good heavy color in the center. And now using water, just pull this color down outward. The lines that you've drawn underneath will automatically give us the texture we want. I'm using a good fat brush for this, a number 10 brush. And I'm putting in a little bit of crimson right here in the center. So this becomes layer 1 of the hibiscus. While the hibiscus dries, I'll paint the buds and the leaf. The leaf is fairly dark, so I'll add a little more sap green. The peonies also are pretty much the same. Paint the center. And now a slightly pinker color would do, not as red. Hopefully mine turns a little pink. And here it's mostly just stripes, right? So you don't even have to bother making a base color. Just draw these curvy shapes towards the foreground and shapes that come towards the center in the background petals. Now, if you feel you want to make lines by turning the book around, that is also fine. This can sometimes disorient. So if you can also rotate the image of the flower itself. Otherwise, even so much is fine. We're going to come back and make some deeper shades over here with a different shade altogether. And now just one demonstration I'll give for the pansy, because this can be a little bit of a challenge. So I'm using the pink and orange pansy. I want to show you how that is done. This one. Oh, sorry. This one. So we are going to blend these colors. Then we are going to wait till the center petals dry, and then we are going to paint the petals in the back. So I'm using a wash of gamboge in these parts. Wipe the brush and use a wash of the same color that we used earlier. And here we are using this blending exercise where the brush is half full of the new color and make vertical strokes perpendicular to the edge and introduce the new color to the old color. That way there isn't a shock to the system, and they often blend quite peacefully. Both consistencies have to be similar. Now, once you have applied the colors, and if you feel that your color is just slightly damp, not wet, you can put a little dark shade in the place where we are going to draw the texture. We'll come back to this afterwards and make our deeper color. Okay, so here also I can probably demonstrate. This has become wet. Is the speed working for everyone, or is it becoming difficult now? I'm deliberately going faster so that I don't want you to spend too much time on any one flower. If you do, you will tend to just go back and forth in the same area and really nothing comes of it. Okay, now going back to the hibiscus, you can take a little bit of burnt umber and crimson, and that'll give you a nice deep crimson color. And you can add a little more, maybe black or ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue and crimson will make a very vibrant purple. We don't want that. So to counter that, we will add burnt umber. And now you can use a little bit of technique to almost carve out the stalk of that anchor. Just a little bit. And make this almost star-shaped interior of the flower. Then using either a thin brush or a brush with a good predictable tip, slightly drier color. It's the same color, but in some corners it will have become drier. You can use that and extend some part of this dark line outward. to make the details of the petal. And some places, if there's an overlap of petals, we'll take a cobalt blue. That's this one. And here's how I'll make that shadow. There's a nice overlap over here. So I'm going to just press my brush down. One tip pointing or touching the edge of the overlapping petal and create a nice blue shadow underneath it. It's a very light color and it's also very thick. The last part, you take the deep red shade and make these 5 dots. Just one shading of the stalk. This is usually enough. Okay, just the last part for the pansy. This time round, we will add that light pink color to the outside edge. Wash and wipe the brush and then pull it towards the inside. So you get a subtle lightness as it comes towards the center. Same thing on the other side. So you have to make sure that you have collected some wet paint towards the bottom of that section from where it can be dragged quickly into this recess. Now I'll use a little burnt umber to make some light lines first. Just make sure that they're not all the same kind of line. Some are fat, some are thin, some are long, short. So this will be the soft base of the texture. Once that is done, on the same shape, make darker lines using black. So this part you can even make when the paint has dried. I've made this now while the paint is wet, so it will bleed a little bit. The brown base will give us the soft outline that we need for our organic shapes. And we put a little gamboge in the center. And then afterwards, after everything dries, I'll put a little blue just in the triangle. Okay, so I'm going to complete this page as well. So you can see how it looks finally. Wherever necessary, I will make notes about color and shades. Most of the flowers I have continued to use the same shade, just changing proportions here or there a little bit. Okay, any questions?
No, Aditi,
All
it was
good?
a lovely session, all good.
Good, good.
Happy to be here. It was wonderful. And that too in the middle of the week and the first week of New Year. So very excited. it's the perfect Kickstarter for. So I will after this log into my office. So Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays I work from office, and Tuesdays, Thursdays I work from home. So that is the reason I was able to join this batch. So let me just rush. Thank you, Aditi. I'll see you next week.
See you next week. Wait, next week we won't have class because I will be in Mahabaleshwar. We have
Okay.
the art retreat. We will do maybe an extra class the week after that. I
Okay.
think we have 5 Tuesdays. Since it's the second, we will have 5 Tuesdays. So we will make up somewhere along the way.
Sure, sure, Aditi. No problem. In the meanwhile, I'll practice with all these
Yes.
flowers. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Aditi.
Bye.